Okay, so wow, 950 years.
Yeah.
That's how long Prophet Nuh's mission was.
Yeah.
Almost like an entire millennium dedicated to just this one thing.
Mhm.
I mean, doesn't that make you think about just like how much resilience you would need
Right.
and what kind of message could sustain someone for that long?
It really does.
Yeah.
And when we think about, what was happening when all this was going on,
Hmm.
it makes it even more interesting.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about like one of the very first prophets sent to a community
Okay.
that was just completely like surrounded by idolatry, like completely. And actually the sources like tell us the names of the idols they worshipped.
What were they?
So it was Wad, Suah, Yaguth, Yak, and Nazar.
Okay.
And like these weren't just random names.
Right.
Some of them, from what we know historically, were associated with like specific tribes, or
Uh,
or they had like a special meaning for them in their agriculture, or beliefs about protection and things like that.
Oh, interesting. So it was really like rooted in something.
Right.
It wasn't just some random made up thing.
Right.
And that just shows how much Prophet Nuh was up against.
Yeah.
Because he was calling them to abandon all these things they had always believed.
So this wasn't just like a light disagreement. This was like to the very foundation of their culture and their spirituality.
Exactly, like a head-on challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that leads us to what we're going to really explore in this deep dive.
Right.
We want to understand the really profound things that we can learn from Prophet Nuh's story.
Hmm.
That incredible perseverance.
Yeah.
And that just complete conviction that he had.
Yeah.
And then how divine justice actually manifested,
Mhm.
and think about what those lessons mean for you
Yeah.
in your life today.
Exactly. And the source material we're looking at is like a collection of excerpts that like
Yeah.
really tell the story in a vivid way. And they all emphasize these same themes.
Perfect. So let's jump in. Right. So at the heart of it, Prophet Nuh's message was actually quite simple.
Mm-hmm.
It was the concept of Tawhid, the oneness of Allah.
Good.
You have to imagine a society where like their whole identity and power structure
Right.
was built on worshiping all these different deities.
Yeah.
And Nuh comes along and he says, you're only supposed to worship one God.
Right.
That's not just like a theological difference,
Yeah.
it could change everything about their way of life.
That makes sense.
So that helps us understand, how much resistance he faced
Yeah.
and why his mission required so much courage,
Mm.
and he kept at it for centuries.
Yeah.
That figure of 950 years, that's from Quran 29.14.
Yeah.
Like it really puts things into perspective.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's really amazing to me is that he spent all that time and effort,
Mm-hmm.
but the sources tell us that only a really small number of people actually accepted his message.
Yeah, it was a very small group.
You can almost feel like the weight of that rejection,
Yeah.
Just year after year.
Yeah, and it wasn't even just that they ignored him.
Mhm.
The disbelievers actually mocked him.
Wow.
They said to his face, "We see you in clear error."
That's so harsh.
Yeah, like just straight up dismissal,
Right.
really disrespectful.
And I think it shows how challenging it can be for anyone who tries to make a change,
Absolutely.
especially when you're going against something so deeply ingrained in people.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating here is how Nuh responded to them.
How did he?
He didn't get all defensive.
Okay.
He didn't, lash out at them or anything.
Mhm.
He answered them with such incredible patience and wisdom.
Oh.
Like the source says, he said, "Oh, my people, there is not error in me, but I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds.
Okay.
I convey to you the messages of my Lord and advise you.
Mm.
And I know from Allah what you do not know."
I mean, that's such a calm and rational response to being basically ridiculed.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe that composure was part of his whole approach?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Like showing a higher standard even when people are rejecting him?
I think it definitely could have been. Like
Yeah.
maybe just standing firm in the face of all that ridicule was like a powerful message in itself,
Yeah.
you know?
And it sets the stage for the resistance he kept facing,
Right.
especially from the leaders of his community.
Yeah, the sources really highlight how arrogant the disbelieving leaders were.
Mm-hmm.
They looked down on the people who had accepted Nuh's message,
Okay.
the poor and marginalized people.
Right.
And they asked him this very dismissive question:
Yeah.
should we believe you while the lowest class of people follow you?
Wow.
So you can see how rigid their social system was.
Mm-hmm.
They thought your place in society determined what was spiritually true.
Right. So they were basically equating their wealth and status with divine favor,
Yeah, they thought that was how you knew who was right.
which I think is something we still see all the time.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very human tendency.
Yeah, to judge an idea not based on the idea itself,
Right.
but based on who believes in it.
Exactly.
But Prophet Nuh went directly against that.
Hmm.
He said wealth and social position don't mean anything to the divine.
Yeah.
It's faith and righteous conduct that matter.
And that really gets to the core of so many prophetic teachings.
Mm-hmm.
It's this idea that everyone is inherently equal in the eyes of God.
Right.
Doesn't matter what your worldly circumstances are.
Yeah, it's a message that really challenges how power works.
It does. It always has.
And yet the people still reject it.
They were so stubborn.
Right.
The sources really emphasize that,
They wouldn't let go
nope, they couldn't let go of their idols.
of their old beliefs.
Yeah.
So after centuries
Yeah.
of this rejection,
Centuries.
we reach a really important moment.
Yeah.
This is when Prophet Nuh makes his dua,
His prayer.
his heartfelt supplication.
Uh-huh.
The source quotes his words, and they're so powerful.
Yeah.
He talked about how tirelessly he tried to reach them.
Mm-hmm.
He called to them openly. He called to them secretly. But they just kept running away. And he describes how they reacted.
Oh.
They put their fingers in their ears.
Whoa.
They covered themselves with their garments.
It's like a physical rejection.
It is just
Yeah.
pure resistance.
And you can just feel the emotional and spiritual weight that he must have been carrying
Yeah.
to see that level of opposition for so long.
Right.
It's a lot.
And then he says something so profound.
What's that?
He says, "My Lord, do not leave upon the earth from among the disbelievers an inhabitant."
Wow.
And he explains why.
Why?
He says, if they're left, they will only mislead others
Mm-hmm.
and create more wicked disbelievers.
So he's worried about the future.
He is.
Yeah.
He sees how deep the corruption goes.
Right. It's not just about him being rejected anymore.
Just not.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's this moment where you really see how much he's been struggling
Definitely a turning point.
and how much responsibility he feels.
Yeah.
And how does Allah respond to this prayer?
So this is when Allah reveals that a flood is coming,
Okay.
and he commands Nuh to build an ark.
And that seems so irrational, right?
Yeah.
Like, build a huge boat
Mm-hmm.
nowhere near any water?
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah, and the sources talk about how much people mocked him for this.
They must have thought he was crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, can you imagine how he felt?
Yeah, just to be ridiculed like that.
Yeah, but he just kept following God's instructions.
And that right there is a testament to his faith.
It is.
You know, like to build an ark in the middle of the desert,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the ultimate symbol of believing in something you can't see,
Right.
of doing what you're told, even when it seems impossible.
Yeah.
And the instructions were very specific.
What were they?
He had to take pairs of every kind of animal,
Okay.
his family and all the believers.
Everyone who believed him.
Yeah.
But then there's this detail in the sources that is so sad.
What's that?
Nuh's wife and one of his sons were not allowed to go on the ark.
Because they didn't believe. Wow.
It's like that principle we talked about before,
Right.
where faith can be more important than family.
Yeah.
Even though he loved his wife and son,
Hmm.
he had to follow God's command.
And that sets up what happens later in the story.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about how beliefs can divide people,
Even the people you're closest to.
even families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ark is built. The time comes,
Mm-hmm.
and the flood starts.
And the sources describe it in such vivid detail. Like water was bursting out of the earth,
Wow.
and then just torrential rain pouring from the sky.
You can almost picture it.
Yeah.
The water just kept rising and rising.
Yeah.
And the people in the ark were safe.
Safe and sound.
But then we come to this really heartbreaking part of this story.
What's that?
It's when Nuh's son
Yeah.
tries to escape the flood by climbing a mountain.
Oh, wow.
He thought he could save himself.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a very human thing to do.
It is. It's like instinct to try to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
And Nuh calls out to him.
Yeah.
And his words are just filled with so much love and sadness.
What does he say?
He says, "Oh, my son, come with us and be not with the disbelievers."
Oh, wow.
But his son, he's so confident.
Yeah.
He says, "I will take refuge on a mountain to protect me from the water."
So he's putting his faith in a mountain
He is.
instead of in God.
Yeah. He doesn't understand what's really happening.
Yeah.
And then Nuh cries out to Allah.
For his son.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
His words are so heartbreaking.
What does he say?
He says, "My Lord, indeed my son is of my family, and indeed your promise is true,
Mm-hmm.
and you are the most just of judges."
That's powerful.
It's like he's struggling to
Yeah.
understand how this could happen.
Right.
He still loves his son,
Mm-hmm.
but he also knows Allah is just.
Yeah.
And Allah responds to him.
What does he say?
And it's such a powerful and important response.
Okay.
Allah says, O Nuh, indeed he is not of your family. Indeed he is one whose work was other than righteous. So ask me not for that about which you have no knowledge. Indeed I advise you, lest you be among the ignorant.
So it's not about blood ties.
It's not.
It's about faith.
Yeah, true kinship.
Yeah.
It comes from shared beliefs and actions.
Not just who you're related to.
Right, and that's a lesson that I think is so relevant even today.
It is. It challenges us to really think about what
Yep.
connects us to other people.
What really binds us
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then eventually the floodwaters recede,
Okay.
and the ark comes to rest on Mount Judy.
And the sources emphasize how grateful Nuh and the believers were.
Right, they survived.
They did.
And all the disbelievers were destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's like the ultimate example of divine justice.
It is. It's a very clear message.
Right, there are consequences to rejecting the truth.
Yeah.
And so what are the key lessons that we learn from all of this?
Well, first of all, there's the incredible patience that Nuh showed in Dawah.
Yeah.
He preached for 950 years.
It's almost impossible to imagine. Just facing that much rejection for that long.
And never giving up.
And never giving up.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And there's the trust he had in Allah,
Yeah.
building that ark in the desert.
Yeah, like that's the definition of faith.
It is.
Just complete trust even when it doesn't make sense.
And the power of dua.
Right.
Nuh's prayers were so heartfelt.
Yeah.
So sincere.
Mm,
And they led to God intervening.
they did.
And then, of course, the lesson about faith being more important than family.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
It is, but it's so clear in this story.
It is.
And then finally, this overarching theme of divine justice.
Right. That our actions have consequences.
Yeah, and that's not just something that happened back then.
No, these are lessons for all time.
Yeah, they're about the human condition,
Yeah.
about how we deal with
And
challenges,
about we find something to believe in.
about how we connect with each other.
Exactly.
So as we finish this deep dive into Prophet Nuh's story,
Mm-hmm.
let's think about how these lessons apply to you, the listener. So think about a challenge you're facing right now,
Yeah.
something that's been going on for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it feels like you're not making any progress.
Right.
How can you apply that principle of perseverance?
Good question.
How can you keep going, like Nuh did?
Yeah.
And what about your own arc?
What do you mean?
I mean, what is it that gives you a sense of safety
Mm-hmm.
and purpose?
Yeah.
What connects you to your values?
Good question.
And how can you strengthen that connection?
Right.
And how does understanding true connection, the kind that goes beyond just surface level ties,
Yeah.
how does that change how you view your relationships
Right.
and your place in your community?
It really makes you think.
It does.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what would give you that kind of steadfastness
Right.
if you were facing the same kind of rejection that Nuh faced. I mean, for 950 years,
Wow.
what kind of inner strength would you need?
Yeah.
What kind of conviction?
That's a really powerful question.
It is. It's something to think about long after this deep dive is over.
Definitely.
Thanks for listening.
And thank you for